Hello and welcome to the show. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today's show is one that's long time coming, and I really am excited to present this to you today. It is a client testimonial. It's a client I've been working with for over 8, 9, maybe even close to 10 years. And Greg Lay represents a part of the population that for some of us are our dads or our grandfathers, and for some of you it's your husbands or your brothers. And he really could speak to the simplicity and the resistance that a lot of people have to linking some of their pain with emotion. And before we get started on today, and I just introduce Greg very quickly, I want to also add that when I talk about the emotional root of pain and disease, what most men and women, but a lot of men can relate to when we talk about emotion is stress. And no person that I know would deny being stressed, or someone that would say, I have a lot of stress. Well, everyone, stress equals emotion. Okay, stress doesn't exist without emotion. Stress literally is the embodiment of negative emotion. And it's about the way that you interpret your situation or your environment or the conditions that are going on and your relationship to all of that, which cause stress. Stress doesn't just live in a certain vacuum and then you catch it or you don't catch it, sort of like anxiety. So just remember that when you hear the word emotions, you can add or substitute in the word stress. So today we have Greg Lay. Greg Lay is a part owner of Hanson Engineering Company. They are Southern California's premier aerospace engineering shop. They manufacture multi-axis parts and major structural assemblies. They have aerospace machining, and it's a company I've been working with now for over 10 years. If you want to learn more about Hanson Engineering, go to Hanson, Hansen, engineering.com to learn more. Today, we're also going to make some reference to a book, and the book is Healing Back Pain by Dr. John Sarno. Greg and I both recommend you get it on audiobook, not in the paperback form. I actually have a paperback that I have not completed reading because it is very technical, and you can get through it a lot faster if you do it on audiobook. Again, that's Healing Back Pain, Dr. John Sarno. Today's show was meant to inspire a lot of you to know that there's hope, and to possibly share the show with anyone in your life who sounds like Greg or is in Greg's position. And for those of you that are like Greg. So I hope that you'll listen today with that perspective and that you'll be inspired to know that there is hope and that there's always help and assistance and guidance and support that you can get to help you get there. Enjoy today's show. Welcome to today's show. I have a very special guest with me today. This will be probably one of my best success stories, and not for the reasons that you think. As we go into today's show, I did this show because, and I asked my guest, who is also a long-term client, to do this show. In fact, I begged him multiple times for the last year at least, or the last 6 months since all of this has been happening, because he represents a large part of the population that either I've had a hard time reaching, or clients that I still work with that just aren't ready or aren't listening. And I do recognize that I'm not the person who's always going to be the voice that you hear or that's going to make the difference. A lot of you who listen to the show, I am. But for other people, they're not going to hear it from me. So first of all, I want to say thank you, Greg Lay, for being here today. Welcome, Greg, to the show.
Thank you, JJ. It's great to be here.
So Greg's story, I started working with Greg probably at this point 9 or 10 years ago.
Yes. I don't know exactly, but it's been a long time.
Let's talk about why you started working with me in the first place.
Well, I was kind of pushed into it by my brother who was working with you. I was having back issues. Every couple months, I would have back pain, and I would miss work, and I'd be laid up. And Jody just came in one day, and he says, "Hey, you got to start working with JJ." And so I said, okay. And I kind of procrastinated a little bit. And one day I came into work, and there's JJ sitting in my chair.
It doesn't hurt that I actually train them at the office sometimes, or not all the time, but at that point, that wasn't the case. But I was here. I forget why I was here, but I came in and sat in your office and knew that Jody wanted you to get started, and I didn't pressure. I just wanted to see if
No.
you were interested.
That's true. There was no pressure, although I felt a little bit when I walked in there. You were.
Well, I don't think you're sorry about that now. We're 10 years later, and you're still here. And I'm still here. What were your goals when we first started working out together?
To lose weight and just to get in better shape. I had never worked with a trainer before, so I didn't know the first thing about working with weights and building muscle or anything. So I just needed to get started, I guess.
And at what point, I don't remember how far into our relationship that I hopefully gently or gingerly possibly indicated that your back pain could be emotionally rooted. Do you remember how quickly I might have brought that up?
I don't really. It may have been about a year or so into it, or sooner. I'm not sure.
Usually I start with people if they have any kind of physical pain and know that 10 years ago I was a different person than I am now. Would you agree that I've changed in the last 10 years?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay. Just so that those of you know, I haven't been saying the same things. As I learn, I pass that on to my clients and the things that I know and understand and how I work with them and the concepts and the ideas. And back then, I was literally just still training. I was doing all this other emotional work on the side, but I wasn't necessarily teaching everybody because everyone who was working with me just wanted weight loss and exercise. They weren't interested in talking about emotions, talking about spirituality, law of attraction. Forget about it. Like I was not coaching anybody. I wanted to, but they didn't come to me originally with that goal, so no one was really that open to it. So I although I know that I tried anyway, because I knew that the things that I had to share were going to be impactful and helpful eventually if you ever listened. Not you, Greg, but just anyone in general. So I know that I did bring it up because it was chronic. You had chronic lower back pain. And it would take you out for a long time, and we had to work around lots of exercises because of the pinching. And so let's fast. Do you remember the first thing you thought about when I said that it was emotional or that I kept harping on that it was emotional?
Well, yeah, I didn't believe you. I had already been to the doctors who told me that I had worn out discs, L3 and L4, and I just thought, well, no, it's a medical situation. It's physical. So I just wasn't going for it.
All right, so now you're thinking in your head, because you're very pleasant and you didn't say it to my face, like, JJ, you're crazy and this isn't true. It's not emotional. You just sort of would smile. But in your head, you were thinking it's medical. Okay.
Yeah, and I did discuss it with Jody at the time, too, my brother. And he said, well, JJ, she's good, but I don't know if I believe everything.
Okay, and that's fair. So you think it's medical, and let me ask you, what was medical institution doing to alleviate your back pain?
They wanted to do surgery, of course. Originally, it was just like pinching and back pain, and it got worse over the years. And he said, I can go, because I started getting sciatica after a few years. And the doctors, well, yeah, you've got a pinched nerve. I can go in, I can do surgery, open up the spine where the nerves come through and alleviate the pain. And I wasn't into that.
Why?
I just didn't want somebody cutting on me, and the pain wasn't bad enough and often enough that I was like, had to go get surgery. So I just dealt with it as it came, and sometimes it laid me up for 4, 5, 6 days in bed with really bad pain that I could hardly get out of bed without having crutches or something to help me even get up on my feet. And then I couldn't walk, so it was bad.
But it wasn't bad enough to get surgery?
No, because I'd go like 4, 5, 6 weeks, a month, maybe 2 months without it. And then when I started getting the sciatica, I got the cortisone shots. It helped with the sciatica pain for the first shot. It was like I didn't have it for 6 years.
Yeah.
After that.
I know along this journey, I think I forced you to watch Dr. Sarno's video.
Yes.
Well, do you remember when you watched it, what you thought about?
I thought, well, he's got this group of people there. I didn't quite understand the whole thing. And I was like, I tried to take the concept and think about what he was saying and make it work for me. But At the time, I didn't realize that there was more to it. You have to work a situation, his program, and I didn't have a workbook or anything, so it just kind of went to the wayside.
That was probably 8 years ago.
Yes.
8 years.
I think so.
So for those of you that have been listening to the show for a while and you've heard me talk about clients that have taken a little bit of time to sort of come around or wake up in the world, this is Greg. This is who I've been talking about. He knows it. He says,
That's
I
me.
hear you talk about me on the show. Well, at least I also appreciate that you listen to the show, at least to some of the episodes, because I know I started my show to help my marriage. But I also started my show to help my clients. That's why I did Releasing What Weighs You Down, was literally for you, your brother, and everybody else I work with in person that I knew I couldn't help change the situation with just exercise once or twice a week in person. It had to be something where we got together and did these principles and looked at things differently and went through different exercises to actually help everybody get over the hump of why can't I have sustainable weight loss? Why can't I commit to doing my exercise on my own? Why do I keep having these pains? Or why do I let stress force me to emotionally eat, or whatever the case may be? So you've watched Dr. Sarno's video, and it goes by the wayside. Okay, fast forward now. I do this event, and I'm doing this event for you and everybody else who I'm working with one-on-one, who's been with me for a long time. What made you come?
Well, I was a little resistant, and I was on the fence for a long time. But the more you talked about it, it was like I felt if I don't go, I'm going to miss something. So I just decided one day, hey, I think I'll do it. It's just a weekend event, and I was glad I did.
Yeah, so Greg was at my first Releasing What Weighs You Down, and when he told me, I cried out of relief because, again, I was doing this to serve people in a different way that ultimately was creating the bigger package of what needs to happen for everybody's progression in the program. Because, as a personal trainer, when you're just a trainer, and this is no knocking anyone who's a personal trainer, if you love what you do and you love the science that you can bring, hopefully you're bringing science to their exercise program or their nutrition or looking at their sleep patterns or their stress patterns, the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, the more invested you are in everything someone does because you want them to succeed. And at some point for me, I felt very frustrated. You and your brother have really set a platform for me to grow and detach from your outcome and know that there's only so much I can do to help you. If you're not wanting to take it on, it's not because I have failed as a trainer or as a person or as a coach necessarily, but I know that I've tried many different angles for all of you to help you get over that hump of whatever it may be. And for you, it was back pain because it would take you out. You'd miss a lot of sessions every so often on a regular basis because your back went out. And I do remember that I would poke fun at you and say, you did open up to it a little bit because I'd say, oh, what happened with Keith today, your brother, or what, right? Or what stress happened at home or what's going on? And I'd start asking you questions and linking situations to your back pain. Do you remember that?
Well, if you remember that one day you were at my house, we were working out, and we were talking about Keith, and I went to pick up the weight, and all of a sudden my back just spasmed bad, and you're going, oh my God, we're talking about Keith, look at it. So,
I do remember that now that you pointed out, but I forgot that. And back then I was going to people's homes and working them out or coming to an office. And I actually still work with these guys in person. They're the remaining few who I still see in person on a regular basis because I encouraged their business, their place of work, to put a gym in there. And so now it's easy for everybody because it's 1, 2, 3 and everybody's getting their exercise there. So I do remember that. But I never stopped linking it every time you'd have it just to sort of showcase there's a correlation here between your back pain and this emotional trigger that's happened to you. And I thought you were warming up to it. This was before Releasing What Weighs You Down. This was before the most recent event that really sort of catapulted you into this new.
I really wasn't. I was still resistant at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were resistant to accepting it, but you had a certain awareness about it, didn't you?
Yes, of course.
Why do you think you were resistant to accepting it? Because I know you knew what the trigger moments were because you'd tell me.
Uh, I don't know. I was just resistant because I believed the doctors and what they said.
Okay.
And I wasn't ready to make the step, I guess, to go to the emotional side of things.
Was there fear?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I respect and understand. I'm not a doctor. You're looking at the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there a time, though, that you realized that it's been a long time and this isn't going away? And the doctors, what they have said, like my options, I don't like my options. And what about, well, what if I just try off what JJ says? Like, maybe if I just try it, if it doesn't work, then I can say, okay.
I was liking the fact that the cortisone shots were working for me. And so I was relying on that and not leaning towards the emotional side yet at that point.
Okay, so let's fast forward to what was the moment in time that really moved the needle for you right now?
Well, the second time I got the cortisone shot, it only lasted like 2 years as opposed to 6 years the first time. So I was like, okay, well, these aren't working as well. And in February, I was working so hard, working on the weekends, working many hours, and I was just wearing myself out. And I came down with pneumonia. And so I was laid up for 3 months with pneumonia. And then about 4 weeks later, my back went out. And it was spasming so bad. The spasms were just unbearable. It was the worst I'd ever had. And so I said, well, I'm going to check it out. So I talked to you, and I went and bought Dr. Sarno's first book, Healing Back Pain. And
I had sent you the show I did on healing back pain again, didn't I? And because I had sent it to you in the beginning, 10 years ago, and you listened to it, or maybe you didn't listen to it. I know you watched the video, but then I sent it again as you were in the hospital, I think. And did you listen to that show again?
I don't think I did.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. You just skipped over and just bought the book.
Yeah.
Okay, so you bought the book, and then what?
I listened to the book, and I started the first chapter. I was like, everything he said, I was going, well, that's about me. I got to the next chapter, same thing. The whole book was about me. So I bought his next book.
The Mind Body Prescription.
Mind Body Prescription, yeah. And so I started going through that, which has chapter after chapter of all the ailments that he was healed. And I finally got to the end where he talks about his program and how you work it. And I started working the program. And it's working.
So how well is it working, Greg?
Well, I've had a couple of, that was like June 12th is when I bought the first book. And
here we are in November.
Yeah. And I've had a couple of little pinches in my glutes, nothing major, but as soon as I get them, I go back to his program, think about what's bothering me. Is work building up? Is my family? My mom's 86. She's needs help. So I think about what's burdening me, and sure enough, the next day it was gone. And so I think I'm cured. I have one more hurdle, and that's hydrofoiling. Sit down hydrofoil every time. I had to quit doing it because my back hurt after every time, because it was just so much pressure on my spine. So that's the last hurdle, and I don't know. There still may be some medical issue there that might not be good for me.
Well, it might not be good for you anyway. I haven't done it, but I know your brother does it all the time, and his back always hurts. And I've never done it, so I don't understand the physics involved in it. I mean, I do understand on a level of intellect, but I haven't experienced it or done it to test it out. But there are situations where certain exercises and movements are really hard on the back. So
and I think that's one of them.
Right. Well, and there's no, to back up, when someone comes with back pain, there is still the fact that they could be unsupported. They could be standing in a posture that doesn't support them. There are still physical reasons why you may be really tight in that area. Your glutes may be really firing. You may sit in a way that doesn't support your back. There are still structural and anatomical reasons why you would feel either weak in the back or the back is used too much. So, know that while I had a conversation with Greg on Tuesday about his shoulder, and we talked about different areas of the body where, when you've tried many physical things, if the physical things work, then it's physical. I know I go to the chiropractor every so often, and 1 or 2 adjustments is enough, and I'm back to normal. It's not chronic, and it doesn't repeat itself. It's when there's this chronic pain that happens in the same place, or even it moves. Dr. Sono, I know, talks about that it could move from the knees to the lower back. Like most people that have knee problems and lower back problems don't have them at the same time. So the pain usually moves. And so that, well, if it was a real problem, then they would both hurt at the same time if it was really structural. But that's when you have to just stop and ask yourself, have I tried all the things that are physical to move the needle? And if they haven't, then it most likely is something emotional. I mean, all things have an emotional root, and it's definitely been my focus for the last, at least since I started the podcast 5 years ago, to really ingrain people into not ignoring that part of themselves. So what along the way do you think also, were you starting to get curious at all, or was it literally just the amount of pain you were in after pneumonia?
I think that was it, and I thought that I'd better try something else because what I'm doing isn't working. It keeps reoccurring, so I thought, what have I got to lose?
Doug interviewed me on his show and was basically trying to ask me, how do you wake people up? And he kept trying to ask me questions, and I said, you can't wake people up. They have to be wakened on their own time frame. And I've always trusted and just kept that, and also learned over this time of working with you and your brother, and more so him, he's even more stubborn, that it's not my job. All I'm doing, I show up and I do the best I can. I am as supportive as I can, but if you're not open, you're not open. If you're not asking, you're not listening, and you're not going to get it, and that's okay, and that's not about me. But when you are, I'm here and I'm ready. And it's all the same principles I really try to use to save my marriage, which didn't really work. So it's extra special for me when I actually have it work in another relationship, that I'm like, okay. And again, it's still not about me. It's really about, I'm wanting to help. I'm wanting to provide. I'm wanting to have value into what it is that you're going through, and give you tools to get over whatever's bothering you, and to get you to the place where you want to be, which is to be pain-free and to, lose weight, or to be focused on your health in a new way. And I know that one of the seeds that got planted, and we've talked about this, is that I did a lunch and learn here a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And we started to go over the 3-step processes of effective communication and the feelings and the needs list. And then I remember you asking me, or we talked about it in a session once. You said, I've never actually really thought about how I feel. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I kind of woke up, as you put it, around 60. I started thinking about emotions and all these things that you'd been talking about for years. And that was kind of my turning point when I started listening to you a little more, and then releasing what weighs you down helped. Started working with Lisa, and that was good.
What is your relationship to your emotions now versus where it was before?
Well, before, I never thought about them. There was times when I was sad and happy and all that, all the emotions there, but now I think about why am I down? What's bothering me? What's triggering it? So I just think about it more, I guess.
And how does that feel?
It feels good because I get a little resolution.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Versus before, you weren't thinking about it, and so did you feel sort of stuck more before than you do now? Do you feel more like you have tools that you can do something about it?
Well, I think before I'd just go drink some wine or something and push it down and not worry about it until the next time my back went out.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you for that. What would be the tools you've used to numb or still use?
That I still use?
Yeah.
Well, wine is one of them.
Food?
Oh, I guess, yeah, sometimes I do use food. Not so much anymore because I'm trying to work on that too.
Yeah. So. No, yeah, you've been doing really great on the intermittent fasting plan for the last 2 months. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for someone out there who either has someone in their life like you, let's start with that one. So let's say someone's listening to this and they're either married to someone like you or it's their parents, and they're like me and they understand sort of what's going on, but they're trying to help that other person. What advice would you give to that person on how they best can help the person that's like you? What's the best thing that person can do for someone like you? Well, how can they best support them?
Well, definitely getting Dr. Sarno's book. I've offered it to many people, many of my friends, and you can't force it on them, but I've offered it. I've sent them links to get his book. I just believe that, I'm convinced.
I know you're on the other side. So now you're experiencing what I've experienced forever, that you see it so clearly and you want to help them and you want to give them the gift of relief.
Right.
And then you come up against resistance for some people, right?
Yeah.
And what is that? So then what do you do next?
Well, there's not a lot you can do.
So I'm glad you said that. So basically, for the person who has a spouse or a partner, a parent, a child who was you, there's not too much they can do.
Well, I offer them my story is the way I handle it, and and tell them what a success that I feel it is and how he's helped so many people.
Okay, now let's take the person out there who is you listening to this. What would you tell them? What would you tell your old self now that you know what you know?
Well, first of all, I'd ask why you're so resistant. Because I had resistance, and I guess I would just try to explain to them about the science, and I'd say don't be a dumb shit.
Right. Don't be a dumb shit. Do you want to be in pain? Do you want to continue this being in pain?
Exactly.
Right. What about bridging that gap, though, of that it's woo-woo or that it's all in your head? Or what would you say the person thinks, what are you telling me, that it's all in my head and that it's not real?
I've talked to people that have had back pain, and I've offered them the book and the advice that I've gone through, and some of them just look at it and say right away, "Oh, you think it's emotional?" They're just like, they don't believe it. The same way I did, and I just try to tell them that it's true, it works. I'm a believer, and I try to use myself as an example and help them through it, but you can't force them.
Did I ever tell you the story about my friend who had watched the video? I had a friend who is a runner, and we always would do races together on Super Bowl Sunday and other holidays. And I remember I was with his sister-in-law, and she had before we all got together, and his sister-in-law said to me, "Oh, did you hear that this is his last race?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "Right, the doctor told him that he can't run anymore because he had back pain." And I was so thankful that I was with her when she told me the news, because I was able to have my emotional reaction to that with her and not in front of him. So that later when he said to me, "Did you hear this was my swan song?" I was able to calmly just smile and say nothing. And he said, "Whoa, what's going on over there? You have an opinion you're not sharing with me." And I said, "Do you want to hear it?" He goes, "Of course I want to hear it." And I said, "Okay." And that's when I gave him my video to borrow. As well as some homeopathic stuff and whatever else I gave him. And he watched the video and he wrote me an email and he said, "I think this is it. I think this is what it's about. And I'm going to get his workbook and I'm going to do this program." And he never had surgery. The doctor said he needed to get surgery. He never had surgery and he continued running. He was grieving his father's death. It hadn't been quite a year yet that his father had died. And that's when the back pain started. And the back pain got so bad walking up the hill, it went down his leg. And of course the doctor said, it's pinching on a nerve. You have a disc you have a bulging disc, the whole medical spiel that people get, and that you should stay off of it, stop running, stop compressing it. It's not good for your body. And of course he thought, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. So he was going to take care of his body and stop running. But I knew 150% that it was emotional, because he really didn't emote his feelings or didn't know how to process his feelings at that time in the way that would have helped give him relief. And then he got relief. And when I got the message, when he sent me the email, I was at at Verizon, I think, and I was doing a presentation, but I got the email right before my presentation and I cried. I cried, like tears came down my eyes of relief. Again, like I saved another back. Like no one has to go through surgery again. And I feel like it's a truth thing. So did I ever tell that story to you?
Yes, you did.
Did that make any impact on you then?
At the time, I think I was maybe kind of leaning towards I need to do something different. And it probably helped.
So what is next for you, Greg Lay? Now, how is life different on the other side of this?
Well, I'm moving forward with healing myself in other ways. I'm trying to help my wife become part of this whole healing and losing weight. And she's got a lot of pains and aches and pains, but she's very resistant.
Do you think she's as resistant or more resistant
More
than
resistant.
you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my daughter, same thing. I'm trying to help her through some of the struggles she's having, but she's resistant as well.
Welcome to my strife.
I understand.
Do you?
Yes.
I remember having conversations with my ex about you because I felt so helpless that I couldn't help you because you wouldn't listen. And
Yeah.
I remember being like very emotionally upset about it. Not like that I was like on the floor crying. I might have had tears, but it was because I was frustrated because I didn't know how else to help you. Because I don't like to see people in pain, and you now know what that feels like because you having people in your life that are in so much pain, and you see here I have this tool and it can help you. Why aren't you taking it? Why do you want to stay in pain? And it's very frustrating. So
It is. And I try to lead by example with my wife now because she won't listen. I try to tell her about something that I learned from JJ on one of her shows or something, and she just looks at me with a big smile on her face, and just looks right through me.
Yeah.
So I try to lead by example now, and I still bring up hints now and then about things and tell her about my progress with intermittent fasting and those kind of things. But she hasn't quite taken the bait yet. She is starting to listen to some meditation, I believe.
it's great.
I set the app up for her on her phone, so
And you learned meditation at Releasing What Weighs You Down.
I did.
That was your first time meditating.
That was my first time.
How old were you?
Oh, how many years ago was that?
2.
2 years ago. So I was
Not even
60
2.
I was
It was
63.
It was January of 2018.
Yeah, and I'd thought about meditation before that, but I never really knew how to get started in it, I guess.
You didn't have any resistance to that. You
No.
liked it. It was very easy. So what would you tell? Would that be maybe where you tell some people to start who are like you? I mean, your brother needs to meditate like nobody else's business, but I don't. He's like, what would you tell him about meditation?
I think it helps. It helps you get in touch with your body, your mind, and helps ground you and just see the bigger picture, I think. So it definitely helped me. And I still do it just about every morning.
Yeah, I remember you having a good experience with meditation and saying after the event was over that you you continued the meditation part of
Yes.
it. So that was great. And that was Michael Neely who led the meditations, most of them at my event that year, January of 2018. So if those of you that are on the fence, you've heard, we've got I had to beg, I did yell at you, I yelled at you on an email. You know how you yell at people on emails, it's all caps. And I basically said, if you never get out of your comfort zone, you're not going to change.
You did, yeah. And I was uncomfortable at the event.
At first or the whole time?
I was only when it came time for me to talk in the crowd. So that was uncomfortable. But overall, when I came away, when I went home after that, I had never been that relaxed and just felt so calm inside and outside and for years. In fact, as long as I can remember.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
See, men, this is what happens when you come to Releasing What Weighs You Down. You get rid of some crap that you're holding on to that you don't need to. You feel seen and heard potentially and validated in ways that you maybe haven't before. You pay attention to things that you otherwise ignore that you don't really think contribute to your stress, but when you actually acknowledge them, then you feel empowered to change them. So now you don't feel victimized by your circumstances. Would that be true?
Yes. And I met Lisa there, and she did the first
Healing
session.
Clearing.
And I was her subject.
We chose you, yeah.
Yeah. And boy, it was a life-changing experience for me. And I continued to use Lisa for a while after that. Now my wife has been using her a lot. And we've also given sessions to our daughter and our granddaughter.
Yeah.
And it's been great.
Good. Well, I appreciate that because there aren't a lot of men that can speak to the Releasing Weighs You Down event. There were more men at that event than any other one because, again, like I said, I really did put this together for the clients I was working with, and I saw I can't help you in the way I want to help you in the way that we're working together right now. It has to move out of this space of the one-on-one personal training, exercise focused. Even an hour without training and just talking still doesn't get to do what you do when you come together in a weekend like that. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
It really needs to be outside of your comfort zone in a new space, in a brand new arena, doing things you've never done before to actually have some of these breakthroughs.
And it was, for me, that was a new arena, as you said, and just being in a crowd situation and talking about your feelings and everything, and it helped.
Would you encourage women to take their men or for men to go by themselves? You were by yourself.
I think with my situation, I wouldn't have minded if my wife was there. I think it would have been really good for her, too. But then there's that resistance. She's not ready for something like that yet.
But I'm glad that you had the faith in yourself and in me to come anyway. You probably didn't want to. You probably was any of it concerned that I would beat you up afterwards if you didn't go?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Okay, because I've had clients that it's that whole sales thing of like, I'm not selling you. I'm like, you need this. I literally made this for you. And I don't know what else to do if you don't like take this next step because I'm running out of things to create or do. And so, sometimes it's a very, very strong push on my end. Because, that happened in my last event. One of my clients, she's having breakdowns. And I'm like, you need to come now. Please do not wait till January. And of course, they all were like, oh, God, I'm so glad that I came. I'm so glad that I did this. It's because I know you need it. And I know what's on the other side. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback. There's plenty of people on the show that have been to an event but most of them are women. And so I appreciate your representing the older male population of I'm resistant to most things. I'm not the normal spiritually woo-woo person. I'm not really the feeling kind of person, but I see the value in paying attention to my feelings.
And I am much more that person now.
You are. And I love it because it just, like you said, you feel better.
Absolutely.
And when you said to me on Tuesday, I hear you talking about me on the show. And I said, but now you're like the greatest success story.
Well, thank you, JJ. I appreciate that and all the help you've given me over the years. It's been great for me, and it's going to continue.
Thank you. Well, thank you for doing this. I know you were nervous about doing today's show.
A little out of my comfort zone.
Very out of your comfort zone. But do you understand the need?
Yeah, it's going to help. I hope it helps more people after hearing my story and gets them on the right path.
I can't talk to the 65-year-old men the way you can talk to the 65-year-old men. They won't relate to me. They're going to dismiss me. And they're going to hear your story and say, oh, I know. That's me. I hear him. Just like you did with Dr. Sarno saying, that's me, that's me. Someone's going to listen to this and say, oh, no, I'm that guy. I'm him. I was him. I am him. Now, how do I get to be him now? Oh, I got to buy that book. So it's Dr. Sarno's Healing Back Pain, and I would recommend you get it on audio.
Absolutely. The audio, there's a lot of medical terms and technology that he talks about in there that's hard to understand and even pronounce the words. And so having the audio book, it helped a lot. Bumped up the speed to 1 1/4 because he talks very dryly and slow, and it helped me get through it pretty quickly, and it was good. I'm glad I did it.
Good. I'm glad you did it. I feel relief for you. I feel relief for me. And it also does on some level validate that change is possible. It gives me hope. I didn't see it happen necessarily in my marriage. So this is you and Jody become the next long-term male relationships that I've had for the same amount of time. So to see that the efforts that I have taken to try to help are paying off and that they're being received. And again, even if they weren't, I wouldn't necessarily be depressed about that. It's just nice to know and to feel like you're making a difference. That is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's nice to see it. I know a lot of you write to me and I know you're having change and I don't know you, but it's really great when you've invested a lot of time and energy into people on a regular basis for a long period of time to be able to feel like, okay, like we're moving, the momentum is going, we're growing, we're moving, we're not stuck. So
definitely after getting success with the back pain, it's really opened my eyes to a lot more of your teachings, and I've moved forward on other planes and levels to help myself get better, stronger, and live longer.
I love it. So, thank you, Greg.
Thank you,
I appreciate
JJ.
you very much.
I love you.
I love you too.